Right, so I'm going to do a second history video vlog, whatever you call it. Me waffling shit into a camera, basically. And I thought I may as well confront the elephant in the room, because everybody knows who I really don't like. Well, everyone who knows me knows who I really don't like. And that is Dante Gabriel Rossetti. So let's discuss why Rosetti was the ultimate fuckboy. To start the background to this, we've got to talk about Lizzy Siddle. So this is the grave of Lizzy Siddle. I took this photo myself a year or so ago, and it's in Highgate Cemetery in North London. It's not on the general tours. You can do it. It's on the west side. I always forget which side's which. It's on the side that you can only do the tours, guided tours on. And currently, as far as I'm aware, well, it's shut at the moment. God, I'm talking some shit today. I am really talking some shit. Verbal diarrhea. Anyway, I haven't had nearly enough coffee. Oh, look, favourite mug. Best painting ever. Also, it makes the right noise when you put your teeth on it. It's brilliant. I clearly need more coffee or less. So, Lizzy is buried in the old side of Highgate. She is buried in the Rosetti family vault. So she's with Dante Rossetti's parents, brother, sister-in-law, Christina Rosetti, the poet, all that lot. And Lizzy's in the middle of it. The one person that isn't in that grave is Dante, for reasons which will become clear. So Lizzy worked in a hat shop and was discovered by William Devereux, I think it was, Deverell, and began modelling for him in the late 1840s, somewhere around there. And through Deverell, became acquainted with the rest of the Pre-Raphaelites. She met Rosetti in the process and became his model, his muse, his obsession. He stopped her modelling for all the other artists in order to focus on himself, and painted hundreds and possibly thousands of pictures of her. She was artistic herself. She was an artist in her own right, and her career was subsidised for a long time by John Ruskin, the critic and art supporter and whatever you call him, who paid Lizzy a retainer to only paint for him. Ruskin's idea of paying Lizzy a retainer involved telling her how to live, what to paint, what to eat, because men have never been able to leave women in peace. I'm trying not to swear. It's not going to last. So Lizzy started a relationship with Rosetti, and his family were not amused because they considered a hat girl and model to be way below their standard of social, the people they would associate with. So the Rosetti family had endless sort of literary connections and background. He was actually the nephew of John William Polidori, who wrote The Vampire in 1819, and was clearly expected to do better for himself. Lizzy knew that they didn't like her, which only reinforced her feelings that Rosetti would eventually find, a better model, literally. And she wasn't far wrong, because he was never faithful, which was a crime, because look at Lizzy. I mean, she's an amazing looking woman. This is actually a photograph taken by Rosetti himself and painted over the top of it. There's no date. Nobody seems to be able to date it, but it is generally attributed to Rosetti himself. So, Rosetti. This is how we like to see Rosetti in the media these days. Yeah, am I right? Rosetti didn't look like Aidan Turner at all. Rosetti looked like, and how old is he? He's 34 in this photograph. This is Rosetti. Not the same thing at all. So this didn't stop Rosetti being a fuckboy. He was never faithful. He had ongoing affairs with Jane Morris, wife of William, and also Fanny Conforth, who this is a drawing of Fanny from after Lizzy's death, at which point Rosetti moved her into his life. But she'd always been there, and nobody seems to know whether Lizzy knew or not. about it. So anyway, all this understandably exacerbated Lizzy Siddle's depression, and she was addicted to laudanum, which was widely available and a commonplace mother's little helper sort of thing at the time. And talking of mothers, Lizzy had had a stillbirth of her and Rosetti's baby daughter in 1861 and never quite got over it. She clearly had postnatal depression and became pregnant very quickly after the little girl was born, stillborn. Lizzy Siddle died from an overdose of laudanum on, I'll have to look at notes, the 11th of February 1962. Crikey, that would be recent. 1862 at the age of 32. So it's widely accepted that Lizzy did intend to die, but obviously Rosetti found a suicide note pinned to her clothes. It's allegedly, however, it is fairly well documented that he did. But as well as suicide at that point, of still being wrongly considered a crime, it also barred the deceased from a Christian burial and brought shame on any surrounding family. So, and that's not something Rosetti or his family were going to tolerate. So it's believed that Rosetti took the letter, Lizzy's suicide note, to his friend Ford Maddox Brown, who told him to throw it on the fire. The coroner's inquest, therefore, duly ruled Siddle's death to be accidental, even though we all know it wasn't. Rosetti had his wife interred in the family plot in Highgate Cemetery, and to this day she's there with an awful lot of people that just didn't like her. Believing that the death of his muse meant the death of his poetry, Rosetti tucked the poems he was working on at the time, and it was the only copy of a collection he'd been working on for several years, under Lizzy's hair. And everyone knows from the paintings Lizzy had tremendous long red hair, and he rather dramatically and romantically tucked this poetry under her hair before she was buried. 7 years later, struggling with writer's block, Rosetti began to rather regret this grand gesture. So, encouraged by his rather business-minded agent, Rosetti decided to have Lizzy's body disinterred in order to recover their lost works. So, rather poetic justice. When it was obviously quite a gruesome task, she'd been buried for 7 years at this point. When the papers were received back, they had to go off to be disinfected because they'd been in a box with a corpse for a long time. They were damaged by water and insects and were most pretty illegible. I think 3 pages survive to this day. In order to try and make his client feel better about what they were doing, Howell, Rosetti's agent, who had been present at the disinterment because Rosetti, unsurprisingly, couldn't face it himself, decided to comfort Rosetti by assuring him that not only did Lizzy's body look perfect in her tomb, her hair had continued to grow and filled the entire coffin. So I'm not sure what comfort that was supposed to be, but he thought it would help. Rosetti clearly fretted that his dead wife and unborn child might possibly be waiting for him, because don't forget Lizzy was pregnant when she died, and presumably couldn't be sure that his welcome in the afterlife was going to be a particularly friendly one. So he had a clause built into his will, bearing in mind he was now living with Fanny Comforth, who his family didn't approve of either. He had a clause put into his will that he was under no circumstances to be buried in the family vault, which is why Lizzy Siddle is still to this day lying with a family that didn't want her, whilst her husband is 75 miles away in the seaside village of Birchington-on-Sea in Kent. And that, children, is why Dante Gabriel Rossetti is a fuckboy. That is the briefest details. I can see I've already gone on for about 10 minutes already, and that's cut it down. But Rosetti was not the romantic wonder that people think he was, and I don't like him very much. So if there's anyone wants to talk about it, that's great. But I thought I needed to get this one out the way because, Rosetti was a fuckboy.